The Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you on Underdog Fantasy. Underdog is giving away $15 million WrestleMania 5. Sign the promo code SGPN to claim your first-time deposit offer up to first bonus cash on Underdog Fantasy promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. Rhythm has the best AI picks and projections in their football model. It's about to go live. Claim your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com, rhythmsportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. And welcome, everybody, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Game Podcast Network. It is currently late Thursday night, roughly 11 p.m. Eastern Time on August 1st. I'm Ross always, Scott Reichel, once again going solo for this pod. Should be a fun episode because it is time to get into the semifinals of the Olympics. So we have two matches to preview. We have the matchup between Alcaraz and Auger-Aliassime. And then for the late match, we have Djokovic against Musetti. Going to preview both those matchups in a second. For the actual preview, though, want to quickly remind everyone once again to like, subscribe, and also a reminder to check out the podcast either on YouTube or on Spotify or Apple, no matter how you do consume the podcast. And if you do end up actually consuming the podcast on Spotify or Apple, please leave a rating or review. And if you are on YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe. I know the subscriber numbers has gone up recently, so thank you to all those who are new to the channel. Thank you. Appreciate the support. Hopefully you keep watching future episodes, and hopefully we keep winning because that has been a good run over the last couple of weeks. Also a reminder to check out the HOPENY merch store. A lot of great tennis gambling podcast merch. We have shirts, sweatshirts, and mugs, all high quality, all very affordable. So I recommend checking out the merch store there, not just for our show, but also for the other shows of the network. And the featured show for the week's actually the Mothership Show, as the Sports Gambling Podcast with Sean and Ryan. They launched their 32 NFL team previews for the upcoming season. And as a bonus, each team preview episode does have a code word in it. And if you submit the 32 code word phrase, you could be the lucky winner who gets a $500 NFL Circa future bet. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast, and a reminder to download the SGPN app. So before we get into the actual matches for Friday, I want to quickly recap what happened on Thursday. For starters, with the lock and dog picks, we crushed it. We had a sweep for the lock. Djokovic team total over 12.5 games at -125, which was a bit of a sweat early, but then Tsitsipas went up a break immediately in the second set, and we were in pretty good shape from that point forward. I'll get more into detail on that match breakdown in a second. For the dog, though, that was pretty straightforward as we had Musetti on the money line at plus 200. Straightforward because both sets were competitive, but they were the exact same, as Musetti did win both sets 7-5. So straight sets win for the 2-1 underdog, and Musetti keeps cashing bets for us. So thank you to Musetti for being the player that's made us a lot of money over the last couple of weeks. Shout out to the Italians, actually, because Berrettini did the same thing about a week ago. So the Italians have been carrying us, and hopefully they can potentially keep it rolling here on Friday in the semifinals. Now, to recap the actual matches that, once again, we did win a couple of picks on. Going in order, Alcaraz did beat Paul in straight sets. Thought he would win in straight sets. I thought Paul team total under was worth consideration. That did go up in flames as Paul did get to 9 since he lost in a breaker in the second set. Competitive matchup, though, but Alcaraz is just better than him, and he won in straight sets. Musetti, though, beats Zverev. Fun match, competitive match, but Musetti was just a bit too solid, and Zverev was a bit vulnerable in the previous two rounds against Pyron and against Makic. So I wasn't exactly in, I'd say, love with Zverev's current form, and with that being the case, I did think Musetti was alive to beat him, and he did, as he won in straight sets. For the Ruud-Felix match, we got that one somewhat right. We did like the over and the over 2.5 sets. That did get there, but I did think Ruud was going to win the match, and he ended up losing in 3. Now, Felix should have won in straight sets. It was a pretty embarrassing second set loss there by Felix. To recap the second set in particular, you ended up seeing him go up a break early, so it looked like he was going to coast. Then he gave up the break back in the 3-2 game. Then at 4-4, Felix had a love 40, and he also had 4 break points because he had one advantage for a break point, did not convert, and then he ended up having 1 match point in the tiebreak, blew all those chances, and ended up losing the set. So you figured Felix, based on his past, would maybe implode because we have seen Felix struggle in big moments before, but that did not happen as Felix immediately won the first 3 games of the third set. He coasted, and I believe he did not even face a single break point in the entire third set. So he was just on fire in the third set, and he got the job done. So nice win there for Felix. And we'll see if he can potentially make it to the gold medal game, depending on how he does against Alcaraz on Friday. As for the last match, which was a fun one for us because we had the team total over for Djokovic, was the Djokovic and Tsitsipas match, where Djokovic did win in straight sets, 6-3, 7-6. And I feel like the general theme of yesterday's action was just extreme choking hazards from a lot of different players. Felix had the second set choke job, but he responded by winning the third, so he's off the hook. Tsitsipas, though, lost the first set, was actually very competitive. It was 6-3, but there was only one break point in the entire first set, and Djokovic did convert that. But then the second set started, and Tsitsipas kind of opened up a massive lead because Joker was struggling with the knee issue, called for the trainer a time or two, and Tsitsipas immediately went up 4-0 in the second set. So you figure, okay, we have the team total over. We still think Djokovic is going to win, but point is, we do need at least one game from Djokovic in that second set. So that way, if it goes to a third, you just win if he wins the match. But the point is, Tsitsipas led 4-0, and then he got broken to love. So you think, okay, not exactly ideal, but he's got another break to work with. Then he had 3 break points against Djokovic in the 1-4 game. And then Tsitsipas failed all those conversions. So Djokovic ended up holding. Then Tsitsipas held. So it was 5-2. He led 5-2 in the second set. Djokovic ended up holding. So, all right, fine, 5-4. Immediately 40 love. For Tsitsipas, he has 3 set points and then immediately loses the next 5 points. Or I should say he lost 3 points in a row. Then he ended up losing. Sorry, he lost 4 points in a row, got back to deuce, and he got broken. So he had 3 set points, and he also led 4-0 in the second set, and he choked that all away. And then eventually he did lose in the tie break 7-3, and there was a double fault in there. Classic Tsitsipas, let's put it that way. I think that we all know deep down that he is one of the biggest chokers that we've ever seen, and we ended up seeing Tsitsipas once again implode in a big spot. Djokovic, I think, now has won 11 straight matches against Tsitsipas, and he ended up going over the team total for us, but damn, Tsitsipas fully choked away that set, and as a result, Djokovic ended up not dropping a set throughout the entire event up to this point. So keep that in mind. Tsitsipas, though, definitely had Djokovic on the ropes, and the knee was acting up again, but then he settled down, and Tsitsipas imploded again. So either way, nice win there for Djokovic in straight sets. You had 3 out of the 4 matches ending in straight sets, so not the most drama, but there was an underrated amount of drama in those matches. Also throwing out the other choke job in Washington. I know that the matches actually just ended for Washington, as Rublev did beat Rinderknech in straight sets. So depending on when they post the lines, maybe we'll have an episode, but we'll see. Once again, it's the difficult part of actually having events in the U.S. is trying to have enough time to get the lines early in the morning at like 4 a.m. and then having time to record before they actually start the matches the next day. So we'll see if we have an episode, but there was a choke job in there as Fokina once again choked away another breaker. Fokina ended up leading 6-1 in the first set. Then he ended up getting a loss in the second set with a tie break, so ended up losing there. Did have 2 break points in the 5-5 game, did not convert, and then he ended up losing 7-0 in the breaker. Then on top of that, he was up a break in the third set, and he was up 6-2 in the tiebreak. He had 4 match points, and Fokina punted all of them, and then he had another match point at 7-6. So he had 5 match points in the breaker, and he ended up losing as Kaboli came back and won 9-7 in the final set. So I'm going to actually ask for some audience participation here, whether you're in the live stream or in the comments section down below. Let me know which choke job was worse. There was another one with Kokkinakis, but he got injured. So that was really bad, but he did get injured, so I'm going to buy into that a little bit. But that choke job was bad too. So let me know down below which choke job you thought was the worst out of all of them on Thursday. Was it Tsitsipas against Djokovic in the second set? Was it Kokkinakis blowing the second set, eventually quitting against Korda? Or was it Fokina who blew 5 match points in the final set breaker against Kaboli? Let me know down below, but I just thought that was kind of the main theme of Thursday's action. A lot of guys falling apart in big moments. Anyway, point is time to move on to the actual semis. Also, quickly want to mention, though, the women's event, because Swiatek lost, which was kind of shocking, as she ended up losing to Zhang in straight sets, which is pretty rare. And then you saw Vekic dominate against Shmidlova, as you ended up seeing Vekic win basically 6-4, 6-0. She just dominated, but Swiatek ended up losing. Good win for Zhang, who's a very solid player, and we'll see who wins the gold medal game when that comes up in the next day or so. Anyway, before we get into any of the actual preview of the semifinal matchups, I want to quickly remind you once again that we are brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, because just once their Underdog streaks, hit your first 2 pick'em entries, and then you can go streaking. If you get an 11-0 run, you can win 1,000 times your money. Plus, Best Ball Mania is live with $15 million in prizes, United specials, and boosts and all flex entries. And I'll probably end up using one of my entries with Giannis points tomorrow in that game against Australia. Sign the promo code SGPN, And you can claim your special pick and a first-time deposit offer as far as bonus cash on fantasy promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by OddsJam. OddsJam is your one-stop shop for beating the sports books. OddsJam uses millions of data points across every U.S. and Canadian sportsbook to show you the best value plays for your money. The line shopping tool shows you the best price for any bet that you want to make across countless sportsbooks, whether it involves DraftKings or FanDuel, or Bet Online, Bovada, Cut, and many more. They have an arbitrage tool as well, which will help you find opportunities where you can bet both sides of the same prop to guarantee yourself a positive ROI. Their new fantasy tool also features the highest EV plays relative to the sportsbook's odds, allowing you to crush sites like Underdog Fantasy. They even have a tool for finding the best sign-up bonuses. If you're interested in trying out OddsJam, you can get a 7-day free trial by using the link down below. And don't forget to enter promo code SGPN to get 35% off your first month of the subscription. OddsJam.com, promo code SGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast. Just finished recapping what happened in the quarters and some extracurricular stuff with Washington and the women's event in the Olympics. Now it's time to get into the actual semis. So you have two matches. First match is going to be between Alcaraz and Felix. This one will be taking place at around 7:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Second one will be at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. So a decent amount of gap between the two matches. A point is, though, for this one, Alcaraz is a huge favorite, to no surprise, by no surprise. He's minus 600, and Felix is around plus 460. For the spread, minus 4.5 for Alcaraz, plus 4.5 for Felix, and the over-under is around 21 games. For set wagering here, you have Alcaraz in straight sets of minus 180, Felix to win 8 sets plus 150, and the over 2.5 sets is plus 215. Bit of deja vu, actually, with these two semifinal matchups, because both matchups happened in the French Open this past year. You ended up seeing Felix and Alcaraz play against each other. Alcaraz buried him, and then Djokovic faced off against Musetti in the French Open as well. So a bit of deja vu for both matchups. But the point is, Alcaraz did dominate in that French Open matchup en route to the title, as he ended up winning 6-3, 6-3, 6-1. In fact, he has been very good against Alcaraz in the head-to-head, as it's currently 3-3, but Alcaraz has won each of the last 3 meetings in straight sets. So it did seem like Felix was capitalizing on a younger, inexperienced Alcaraz, and then in 2023 and 2024, Alcaraz has run through him, as he has won 7 straight sets. So with that being the case, I think Alcaraz is going to win. Now, that's not a hot take. He's minus 600. The question is where to find value in this matchup, because the straight sets is minus 180. And you got to wonder if Felix can actually remain competitive, because he's been in great form so far in the event, but Alcaraz, we know, is a different animal. And Ruud, I was selling on with the quarter. I ended up picking the wrong guy. I picked Medvedev, but the point is I wasn't sold on Ruud because of the head case, and I didn't fully trust him. I think Alcaraz has been very sharp here. He's not dropped a set yet. A couple of breakers, though. There have been some shaky moments, but I just think he's too good right now, simply put. I think Felix maybe can be competitive for a set, but I think Alcaraz will probably win in straight. I think that Felix maybe can force a couple of spots where maybe he has a break point to take a lead in a set, but I just think Alcaraz is too solid. I think he's the best player in the world right now, by far, and I think that you're looking at Felix, who is still behind. Good for him, though. I'm making the semis. I'm shocked he's here. But the point is, I do think that Alcaraz will win in straight sets, but I think if I had to go for a play here, I probably would lean to the Alcaraz domination, but I would lean to a bit of a sharper angle to that. Give me Felix team total under at 8.5 in this game. Didn't work in this match. Didn't exactly work out in the Paul match, but it was close as it went to a breaker in the final set. Point is, though, with Alcaraz winning each set in the French Open against him with less than 10 games in each set, I just have a hard time picturing Felix actually remaining fully competitive for both sets here. I think that 8.5 is a pretty good number, and if you're expecting Alcaraz to win at least one set, probably like 6-3, you got to like your chances, and it's a good way of reducing the juice from about minus 180 in straight sets to about minus 120. So I do think saving 60 cents, taking that same approach, following the same script, has a lot of merit to it. I am going to go with that as my main pick for this one. But am I picking the upset? No, I'm really not going to bother. I think you're looking at a spot where Felix can maybe win a set, but in reality, I'm not going to fix what isn't broken here. Alcaraz winning is usually just the approach, and until he has another slump like he did at the back end of last year, no point in me going against him. So give me Alcaraz in this one, but I am going to go with Felix team total under 8.5 in that one. Moving on to, I see, by the way, somebody mentioning in the comment section that he thinks that Felix will win a breaker in either of the first 2 sets. It's possible. I mean, I'm not saying that he's going to get fully killed in both sets, but if you're looking at the potential of one blowout set, I think Alcaraz winning a set 6-2, for example, wouldn't surprise anybody. And if that happens and Felix does go to a breaker and he loses, then you still win at 8. You can get one blowout set and you're in good shape. So that's kind of why I'm looking at it. I think Felix could win a set, but I'm not going to pick it. But if it did happen, I wouldn't be shocked, but I would be a bit surprised. I see a bunch of people in the comment section, by the way, arguing about which choke job was worse. A couple votes for Fekina. Fekina's a pretty safe option, but you also have Tsitsipas having a couple options. One, because Adrian bet on him. Sorry to hear that, but Tsitsipas is an absolute head case. And then Kevin saying that if you bet on Tsitsipas, it's like giving 80% of your money away to the books. I'll tell you what, Tsitsipas still wins matches, but you never feel good when you have money on him. Even when we faded him in the matchup on Thursday, we still had to back him, at least partially, indirectly, for the team total. It was a miserable experience watching Tsitsipas choke that away, but it was good for us, I guess. Point is, I do think you're looking at a spot where Alcaraz wins probably with one blowout set, so I am going to go with the team total under for Felix as my pick. Moving on to the next matchup, which should be the more competitive one based on betting odds and just based on overall eye test for both players in the event. Musetti against Djokovic. Djokovic is minus 220. Musetti at around plus 190. For the actual game spread here, minus 3.5 for Djokovic, plus 3.5 for Musetti. The over-under is around 22.5 for the over-under. You have the over 2.5 sets, which is actually pretty cheap at around plus 125, plus 130. So Djokovic, we know, has not dropped a set yet in the event, and that's kind of why people might just expect Alcaraz Djokovic again, because that is the I'd say most likely outcome based on how good these guys have been throughout their careers up to this point, as well as Djokovic actually facing off against Alcaraz in the Wimbledon final. They're kind of expecting a similar script here in the French Open. However, I do have to point out, though, that Musetti's been in phenomenal form. I've talked about it every episode for the last week and a half. Neither guy's dropped the set yet, so both guys have been in great form. Djokovic did arguably drop a set against Tsitsipas. He came back, but he was down 4-0, so he was definitely on the ropes there. Point is, though, both guys have been solid. Now, the eye test would suggest that Musetti's been arguably better because Djokovic hasn't played many tough opponents in this event. He ended up beating Ebden. He ended up beating Nadal. Nadal well past his prime off a 2.5-hour marathon. Easy spot for Djokovic there, which is why we actually had Nadal team total under in that match that won. He had a bit of a competitive match against Kempfer as he ended up going 7-5 in the set. And then he had whatever that was against Tsitsipas yesterday, or I should say on Thursday, where he won in straight sets, but he probably should have dropped a set in that one. As for Musetti, he's been very solid. Ended up beating Monfils in straight sets, beat Navone in straight sets, had a breaker in there, though. Then he faced off against Fritz, was down a break in the first set, came back, and he won 6-4, 7-5, and he beats Zverev, the French Open runner-up, in straight sets. So the point is, Musetti's against better competition. Facing off against Fritz, I know people think Fritz is a head case. I get it. He's still a top 15 player. The point is, Musetti has beaten two separate top 15 players in this event, and Djokovic beat Tsitsipas. That's basically it. That's the only guy he's actually beaten that's worth a damn so far in the event, and I'm sure most of the people who bet on tennis religiously can't stand Tsitsipas either. So the point is, Musetti, I do think, has been in better form so far in the event. Also have to at least mention the knee injury for Djokovic. Now, I know that it was maybe exaggerated because Djokovic was stretching it out a little bit and it bothered him beginning of the second set, and then once he broke, he was completely normal again. So you could argue that he was exaggerating and that it wasn't as bad, and he showed no ill effects of it in the back half of that, I'd say, second set. Point is, though, it is there, and I do think that if Musetti and Djokovic are going to have another marathon like they did in the French Open this year, which went to 5 sets, I do wonder physically how the knee is going to hold up for Djokovic, and that is a concern. I got to at least mention it. So I think for the sake of this matchup, I might surprise some people here. I'm taking Musetti. I think that Djokovic is too big of a favorite here with the knee injury and with the lack of really just solid competition. If you beat Zverev and Fritz in straight sets and back-to-back matches, I'm impressed. I just think Musetti, who's won 16 of his last 19 matches, he's getting 190. I don't want to say it's the same spot as the previous round because Djokovic is obviously better than Zverev, but you get my point. 190 for a guy that's won 16 of 19 matches feels pretty disrespectful against a guy that he struggled against in the French Open, and that struggled against him, in the French Open, and a guy that is a little bit compromised physically. A reminder that in the French Open, Djokovic did win the 4th and 5th sets. So Musetti did win 2 of the first three sets in the French Open, and that actually happened in both meetings. Faced off in the French Open back in 2021, same exact thing that happened in 2024, where Djokovic ended up losing a couple of sets early, and then he rallied to win the 4th and the 5th. Musetti ended up retiring in the 5th, but yeah, my point, it was 4-0. The point is, in both career meetings on these courts in Roland Garros, Musetti has won 2 of the first 3 sets. So I do think that he actually can give Djokovic a series run for his money, and I'm actually going to pick him. I think I'm going Musetti here. I think that it's a good spot for him. I think that he's in great form, best tennis of his career, and he has passed the tests that have been in front of him, and I think he's done very well doing so. So I think I am going to go with Musetti here. Plus, if you also take the money line, there's a chance. I'm not. I mean, to be honest, I don't know if money line really matters if you're worried about injury, for example. I was going to mention that it's also good because if you get through one full set, then a retirement, you still win. I don't see Djokovic retiring in the Olympics. I feel like there's a sense of national pride where people try to avoid retiring as much as possible. So I don't see a retirement being in the cards in this one, but I do think Musetti will make it interesting. I'll put it this way. I think you'll definitely find a better price on Djokovic mid-match than minus 120. I mean, minus 220. So if you end up getting 220 pre-match, I think it's a bad play. I think you'll probably get a better line if you want Djokovic in the middle of the match, personally. So for me, I'm going to go with the dog here, though. I am going to lean to the over. I think you're going to end up getting a serious war on your hands between these two. And I do think Musetti is well equipped to handle the war. So give me Musetti and give me Alcaraz in these two matches. I am going to lean to the over, though, in the Djokovic match, and I am going to lean to the over 2.5 sets as well. I see a bit of a marathon between those two, with me leaning to the young Italian to get over the finish line in the end. But that's going to wrap it up, though, for the actual preview of the semifinal matchups. Now it's time for the lock and dog picks. Before into the actual lock, though, I want to remind you once again that we are brought to you by Rhythm, because Rhythm has a lot of great AI picks and props that you might be missing out on. They just predicted a bunch of winners for the 3M Open in golf, and the football models are about to drop. You can even customize your own betting models using Rhythm's tools. Claim your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblers.com, rhythmsportsgamblers.com/RITHMM. We're also brought to you by Circuit Survivor and Circuit Millions. Circuit Sports is back with Circuit Survivor and Circuit Millions, giving away $16 million of guaranteed prizes. And if you also don't have a trip booked yet for Las Vegas before football, Ultimate Con this weekend's a great time to go. Hang out with Ryan and Sean and enjoy us with the more events, the World's Best Sportsbook, from August 22nd through the 24th. I might be going to that. I might not be going to that. I'm going to have to look for flights, but the point is there's a chance I'm going to be there as well. Don't forget, though, that you can get a discount on your hotel room. If you use the promo code SGP15, you can save 15% off your hotel room for a sign-up weekend. Sign up in person at Circuit Sports between now and September 7th and use a proxy play from anywhere. We also have a great deal right now where if you sign up in person at Circuit Sportsbook between now and September 7th, use a proxy to play from anywhere you can. Also, go to proxy.footballcontest.com and you can save $50 with the promo code SGP. So a nice deal there if you are trying to save a little extra money with a proxy if you are entering any of these circuit contests. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast. Just finished recapping the quarters and previewing the semis for the Olympics on Friday. Now it's time for the lock and dog picks. For the lock, since I said I don't think retirement is going to be an issue in the Djokovic matchup, I think that no matter what happens, Djokovic still obviously has a shot at the bronze if he ends up losing in theory. So the point is, I do think that Djokovic, I actually don't know how the retirement works. If you retire in a match, can you compete for the gold, for the bronze medal match after? I actually don't know if you even can. But I do think Djokovic is going to complete the entirety of the match. So I am going to go with Musetti plus the 3.5 games at minus 117. I think it's a good price. I think Musetti at the end of the day has been in great form. He has won 16 of the last 19, beat Zverev in straight sets, beat Fritz in straight sets. Djokovic ended up beating Tsitsipas, but he probably should have lost a set in that one. So I do think Musetti's in better form at this point in time. Djokovic, though, has not dropped a set, but I mentioned before he battled the knee issue in the early portion of the second set. So there's a chance that if Djokovic feels the knee again, maybe punts a set in there, and you end up getting a nice 6-2, for example, for Musetti. And then in that case, you have a lot of insurance to work with there for the actual spread. Or the knee bothers him, and Musetti can beat him. But Musetti's proven 2 times in the French Open in the past he can handle Djokovic. He won 2 of the first 3 sets in both French Open meetings before eventually losing in 5. So I do think that Musetti has proven in the past he can bother Djokovic on these courts, and he's playing better tennis than he did back then. And we saw what he did in the French Open against Djokovic and what he's done just in general in Wimbledon onward. I think you're looking at what should be a fun match. Maybe it's going to be very competitive, but I do think 3.5 games is a few too many. Give me Musetti plus the 3.5 games as my lock at minus 117. For my dog, I am going to go to the Alcaraz and Felix match. Bit of a niche play here, but I do like the play quite a bit based on the head-to-head history. Give me the first set total. Give me the first set under 9.5 games at even money. 4 of Alcaraz's 5 matches, 4 of the last 5 matches for Alcaraz have had less than 10 games in the first set. I believe 3 of the 4 matchups here, matches for him, have had less than this in the first set. You're looking at Felix, though. He's also had a couple of quick first sets, as 3 of his first 4 Olympic matches have had less than 10 games in the first set as well. And the main reason why I'm going to take this, Alcaraz has owned the head-to-head. I said before, he's won 7 straight sets. Each of the last 5 head-to-head sets ended in less than 10 games. So I think you're looking at a spot where you might only need 1 break, actually, to get there. If Alcaraz serves first, then 1 break and you potentially get a 6-3 anyway. But I do think with the amount of lopsided sets we've seen in favor of Alcaraz in this head-to-head matchup, and the fact that it is even money, I think makes it quite appealing. But when 4 or 5 have gone under, when 3 or 4 have gone under, and you are looking at the head-to-head, having 5 straight that have gone under, I think this is actually a pretty good play at even money. Shopping around, you can find like minus 125, I think, on Bet365. So you're getting even money. This on FanDuel, I do like it quite a bit. Bit of a baby dog here, but I do think this has some value, especially if Alcaraz ends up serving first in the first set. That's going to wrap it up, though. For the actual picks, a reminder, the picks for the semis, the lock's going to be on Musetti, plus 3.5 games at minus 117. And the dog's going to be on the first set of the Alcaraz and Felix match to go under 9.5 games at even money. We were planning on being back for Washington for the quarterfinals. We'll see when the actual odds get posted for the Rublev match. We'll go from there. But I believe the matches start at, when does it start? Like 2 p.m., I think, on Friday? They start 2 p.m., so maybe we'll have an early morning episode. Maybe. So stay tuned for that. Apologies. But once again, it's the issue with actually recording in the U.S. when you have events going on in the U.S. The matches end so late, you have to wait till the odds actually drop. So we'll see what happens there. But we will be back no matter what for the final in the Olympics. Find me on Twitter, though. Until then, Ray Show Radio. Find me on the NBA show. Find me on the MLB show as well. Until next time, good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.